Hello guys, I'm Super Ron, welcome back to the G Unit and welcome to episode 21 of my GBS Zero build. My foot is still broken, I've still got the moon boot on, but I thought we'd get down here because it's been a whole month now since we've had any actual progress on the kit car. You may remember in the last episode that we were working on it, we were doing the wiring looms. We got all the aerial atom clocks all in, we got all the Savage switches all in, we got all the Sierra column, everything all ready. And now I was just working on getting the loom going to the front. So I'd braided up to here and we'd got the starter motor, we'd got this side headlight ready, we've got the indicator ready, but this side still needs to go round to the other side for the alternator, the other headlight, the other indicator, and whatever else is on that side. So we've just got to carry on braiding this up. So I thought I'd take a few minutes and get this job finished off. And then we can put all the terminals on and this side of the front loom will all be finished. But first things first, I'm still not adjusting to this outside temperature after being indoors for so long. So let's get this on. Much better. Okay, so that's warmed us up nicely. Turn this off. So you saw me take off the nose cone there for a little bit better access, and I was just having a look through because it's been a little while since I've seen it, so I had to have a recap myself of how far I got up to. So in previous episodes we've got the aerial atom SPA clocks all wired in, we've got all the Savage switches wired in, and we made those little wiring looms, sub looms, so we could unplug the plugs. And over here we've still got a little bit to finish off here. This is the wiring for the speedo, the oil pressure gauge and the brake fluid low warning. So they've just got to be finished off. But all the Sierra column for the indicators, the lights, the ignition, that's all wired up and finished. So I thought as that was all done and all the looms were made nice, I was working my way forwards to the front of the car. And we've got this little tail goes off to the starter motor. So they're the big power wires and the starter wire as well. We've got this little tail goes down to the oil pressure light, and then forwards this one's for the headlight this side, and this little one is going to attach to the nose cone because the indicators are going to be in the nose cone, so they need to come off. Then it works its way round, and that is as far as we got. So on this side of the car we've got the wiring for the alternator because we relocated that down to the bottom. We've got the horn and the radiator fan and sender, and also this side headlight and side repeater. So I just need to carry on braiding it up, and then we can get the plugs on, and that'll be the front end nice and finished. Here's everything in their places. You saw me with the wiring diagrams working out what did what to remind myself. So we've got everything in their right places now. This is going to go to the headlight under there. So we've got side light, dip beam, main beam and earth, and also we've got the wire for the side repeater there because that's going to run across and on the wheel arch. We've got the alternator wiring running down here, and that goes in the back of the alternator. We've got the temperature gauge sender there, so that's going to run across the top. We've got the earths coming out here. There's one for each headlight and then one for the side repeater as well, and the indicators. And then we've got the wires coming to the front. This is a positive for the fan and the horn, and then the wire going back is the horn activation at the relay, and then the fan wiring will go through the sender for the fan switch and then down to earth, and that's what will activate it. So we've got everything in our right places now. So I think I'll start braiding up. And that's those all braided up. Got everything all the right length to where it's got to go. And the good thing about the big heat shrink that shrinks down 4:1, you can just put one big one over at the end of the loom. And so it all comes out all nice and sealed in there. everything's well protected. So now we've got to look at what plugs we're going to put where, because the headlights is a bit of a tricky one. So with the headlights, they mount here on the GBS chassis, and these are the pretty standard universal headlights that come with them. And how they work is you have a threaded piece at the bottom, and you have a nut that comes off. So it's a pretty easy nut and bolt. You put the headlight through, do the nut back up on the bottom, and it's done. The problem is the loom comes out the bottom of this stub, which means if it's got a plug on it, you can't get it through. And you can't put it around the outside because it's got to go through. So what GBS has done is, what I'll probably just do the same as well, is they've put one of these plugs on, which are quite easy to get the terminals out. So we'll terminal it all up, and to get these out, it's just a simple case putting a little screwdriver in, taking each terminal out. You can do this with bullet connectors, but I just think this is a bit of a neater way to do it. And now we could take the nut off, take the washer off. This can go through the hole. Then the stud can go through the hole. Thread the washer and the nut back on. Get them all the way back to the bolt. And this is on a bit of a cone, like a ball here, so you can put it at whatever angle you want, which I guess is how you set the headlight adjustment. So we've got our headlight facing forwards. You put your terminals back on. So obviously we're going to have to note down where each one of these goes, otherwise you have some cross. And then these tuck underneath here, and that's where it will connect to our loom, just down here. So it's not really something you need to take on and off, on and off, on and off. If you ever have to change the bulb, you just take this front face off and the bulbs are in there for changing it. So we shouldn't ever have to take it off again. But if we do, it'll just be a case of popping the terminals out like we just saw, pulling this out, and then that all threads off together. So I'm going to put the other side of the plugs onto the loom side, which is here ready. So they'll just connect under there and get everything else in its right places. So let's get some terminals. So we've got 4 wires in each headlight. We've got side lights, dip beam and main beam, and then they all share an earth. So we need the 4-pin plugs like what GBS use. So we need to put these on our loom side. There's actually double wires in here because the way the loom's been made is there's not a left and right fused for the fronts. So there's just one power coming down for the dip beam, one for the main beam, and one for the side lights. So they come up into this headlight. So we'll join all these together in the back of this plug, and then they'll come out to the other headlight. So luckily with these big terminals, we can fit a nice lot of wires in, and then we've just got the little side repeater light, which is going to have a plug on it, and that will run round to the end of the cycle wing. So I was thinking we're going to have to put the side repeaters on these terminals that come out easy as well, because the side repeater wire is going to come through the tube and then along the wishbone and then up into here. But in fact, the cycle wings are bonded on the final fit. So the cycle wings themselves aren't going to come on and off, which means the wiring that's going to run through it and come out a little hole here seems to be a pretty common way to do it, and then run along. It can actually have its own plug that can come off, and then if we ever need to take the mudguards off with the side repeater in, we can just unbolt the cycle wing brackets and they'll come off as one. So we'll get the terminals on these. We've got side lights, dip beam, main beam, and sharing the earth. And then we'll just put one of my nice little plugs on, like the little Japanese engine bay plugs that I showed you a few weeks ago when we were doing the other end. And then this is the loom that's going to go to the nose cone. So that's got left indicator, right indicator, and then they share an earth. So if I ever want to take the nose cone off, I can just unplug the little plug here and the nose cone can come off, and all the wiring will stay in the nose cone itself. So let's get some terminals on these, and then these can sit in there, and that'll be that finished. You can see it all wired in nicely. And then we've just got these 2 little wires off here, which are going to go to the side repeaters in the cycle wings. So I've got the nice little plugs we used before to go on there. But I think this is quite obviously the headlight plug, but I think I'm just going to put a little label with the label maker on this, just to make sure we don't get confused when we're wiring it all back together, because we've got this one will be for the side repeaters, and this one will be for the nose cone. So although this will be a 3-pin and this will be a 2-pin, I think I'll get the label maker out, heat shrink them on and make it look a bit more professional. Check that out. So that's the plugs on both sides. Got the passenger side as well. All done. So now I'm going to redo the terminals that are on the lights themselves. But what I think I might do is, the bolts are way too long and they do stick out. You kind of see them underneath. So I think I'm just going to take the loom out, cut these off here, and then braid the loom up and put the plugs on for the headlights themselves. So there's a headlight bolt all shortened, and I replaced the tape with braid. So let's try that back on the car. And that looks loads better. So the nut does up flush with the bottom, and the loom, that will be up there. But then that goes through to there, so we've got to join that to this plug. And there it's all plugged in there. That's looking good. And I heated up the heat shrink a bit and bent it round, so now that sits up there nicely. So that will still be taped up, but that's well away from the shock, and that looks a lot better. Now for the other side. So that's the headlight all wired in, all in its correct plug, and the other side's all in there as well. So now they're all connected up to the main loom, and they'll just be cable tied up nice and tight under the chassis there, out the way so they don't rattle around. So now we need to get power to the loom to test these out, and where the Tiger loom, where the fuse box gets its power from, is the wire comes down and it connects to the battery main terminal via the starter motor. So you've got two wires there going to the starter motor. One comes from the alternator where the charge comes in, and the other goes off to the fuse box, and that's where it gets its power. So when we get the battery in properly, the main battery positive terminal will come to the starter motor here, and that's where the car gets its positive live from. So at the minute I've just been putting some jump leads onto these wires to power up the loom. I think now if we put the correct terminal on it, and then it can get bolted to the starter motor, and that'll be the start of the power loom, and that'll be all finished as well. And then that little wire there, that's just for the starter off the key. So to do this, it's not just the little crimps, it's the big power terminals, like the ring terminals you get onto the batteries. So for that, I've got a new tool from Racing Circuits. They look a bit like bolt croppers, but they're just ginormous crimps for doing it. And they've got a little wheel there that turns around, so you can do all different sizes of wire, from huge great amp wires, from battery positive terminals, going down to quite small ones as well. So we'll give these a try, and we'll get that all terminaled up. And that's the starter motor all wired up. It's all gone in nicely. Those crimps were really good to use. I just could have done with a second pair of hands just to hold everything. But got all the headlights all wired up, and the plugs there for the side repeaters. The only ones I haven't got a plug on is these ones, which are for the indicators in the nose cone. I need a 3-pin plug, but I ended up using them on the ones for the Savage switches. So I'll order another one of them up, but we're all wired in. So I think now I'll just put a jump lead up to the positive post and see if we get some lights. So we've got a battery connected up. Power on, should be side lights. Dip beam. And that's main beam. Perfect. Flash. Excellent. I thought I was going to have to watch the camera and check if they're working, but I can see an absolutely brilliant beam pattern on the door. So I'll flip you around and show you that. So there's dip beam, main beam, dip beam, main beam. And if we earth the engine, the starter's all connected up now, so we should get a noise from that. Excellent. And I just tried on the nose cone just to double check how they fitted with the lights. And everything's all clear, all looking good. And I don't think we're going to have any trouble with shadowing because the front of the nose does go down quite far. So when the lights are on, it should be okay. If there is, I might have to raise them a little bit. I can just put a little spacer on. But all in all, I think that looks absolutely fantastic. So I'm happy with that. That is now the front end of the car harness, all totally complete. Everything's braided, cut to length, all in its right places with its right plugs, all connected up, and everything works as well. So the only thing we've got left to do at the front end, I've just got to get this little 3-pin plug, because that's going to connect the loom that's going to sit inside the nose cone for the indicators that come out here. So whenever you want to take the nose cone off, all the wiring is going to stay inside it with the indicators connected, and there'll just be one little plug you've got to disconnect to take the front end off. So I did have one ready, but I used that for the Savage switch. So I'll get another one of them ordered. And also I've got the wires sitting down the bottom ready for the horn and the radiator fan. So when we get them sorted, that's all ready to connect up to. But the loom itself is all completely finished and I think it looks fantastic, all braided, all nice and safe. I'm not going to have any trouble with that. So you might have noticed that this episode looks a little bit different, and that's because this week I got the media mod for my Gopro Hero9, which meant I could connect up my microphone to it. So I decided to film the whole episode with this. All the episodes before this has been filmed just on my phone, but I thought I'd try something different, so you'll have to let me know what you think. Because it does get a bit of a broader picture, so I'm not sure how well it's captured everything. I've just filmed it as normal, as I normally would. So let me know what you think, how it's captured the lighting, how it's captured all the progress that I've been doing, or whether we should go back just to using the phone again. But I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm gonna wrap this up now because it is absolutely freezing down here and I'm gonna want to get back indoors to where it's nice and warm. But next week, hopefully I'll be out of the moon boot, so I won't be walking around like RoboCop anymore and I can be a bit more bendy and get on with a few more jobs. But we have got a lot of episodes coming up. We've got all the engine bits back, ready to go together. So that'll be coming up very soon. So if you enjoy kit cars, if you enjoy the C20XE red top, make sure you subscribe because coming up, we've got some great episodes for you. But until next time, make sure you have fun.